you know, I gotta.
Morning, everyone. We're here with Jeff Lavelle, broker of the brokerage, a real estate firm. Did I say that right? The brokerage.
Yes, sir, you
real
did.
estate.
How? Good morning. Good morning.
I watched enough videos of you to know how to say that by now. So,
Well,
morning, Jeff. How are you, sir?
How are you?
Now, you do much more than property management, so let's get that clear off the bat. You're a pretty darn big producer in the world of
Oh, stop.
it's real estate. You're a member of the board of realtors. No, yeah, you're on the board of for Las Vegas Realtors, right?
In January.
In January.
So, yeah, I don't get blamed for anything until January.
What do you direct? It'll be a director, right?
Yes, I'll be in a director's position for, I think I have a 2-year term.
Wow. So have you done anything at all regarding that or no?
No, I don't even get, I don't get into meetings until, I think I go in the October meeting for the first time. I get to be a wallflower and just listen in on how things are going before the executive session. Because the directors aren't part of executive, they're part of, just the directors. So we are part of the open forum and everything. There's, availability for members to watch all that, which I encourage people to do. And then we disappear for the directors or for the executive members to go into executive session. And then they create our consent agendas, which we get to review for the next meeting and then decide whether we want to vote on those items or call those out, et cetera, et cetera. So
is this the first time you've served on any position at the board or no? I think you have others, right?
In a leadership role, yes, but I've been on grievance committee for a few years. I've been on quality control for our MLS for a few years. We've brought things like the RV parking has been a little bit more clear. We've improved things on the casita. We've clarified some things on community names. The thing that's coming out, which I'm going to let a little cat out of the bag. We're working on getting a streamlined report for our agents that show rentals that will give a tenant a breakdown on one sheet of where to apply, how to apply, what the qualifications are. Wow. Just everything that you would need to give your tenant if they said, hey, that's the one I want, that's the property I need, then that agent would be able to give them a one-sheeter. It'll have the website, it'll have the property address, it'll have their business hours, everything that tenant needs to know as to how to submit their application for review.
Wow.
So
that's pretty cool.
We're excited about that one. That was actually a member who came to us and said that she was kind of frustrated by how fractured and fragmented it was. So we're redesigning the MLS a little bit to accommodate some more text. And then she came to us with a kind of an idea of what it should look like. And we all sat down and worked out the kinks. And I think it's going to work really well.
Love that, guy.
That's
that's the kind of cool stuff we're going to have coming when someone like yourself and others are on the board as well. So,
well, thank you. We're excited about it.
Yeah, that's something that's been needed, actually.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we need a little more consistency. I mean, we don't want to obviously tell realtors how to conduct their business, whether they can take online applications or paper applications, or whether they take cash or money orders for the application fees. But I think it's important to give the public and our members, a little bit more clear understanding of what's expected, because, you're showing property on a weekend and no offense out there, but if the agent doesn't answer their phone because they're busy, how do you know? How do you guide them and direct them in a way that's useful for everybody?
I've never met an agent that doesn't answer their phone. Is that really a thing? So, Jeff, we totally appreciate being here. We know you're one hell of a busy guy.
Oh, no problem.
On even a short notice, by the way. So
for you guys, always no problem at all.
Dude. You're awesome. So let me ask you a question, kind of off the property. Well, it kind of is on the property management side. As a realtor, how do I keep myself out of trouble from doing property management services when one of my clients says, "Yeah, just all you got to do is just collect the rent check for me. Just go over there and pick it up for me. All you got to do is this. All you got to do is do my walkthrough. Whatever." You don't want to let your client down. You feel like if I say no because I can't do that, is there a rule of thumb or best way to describe that as what not to do?
Yeah, so the Nevada Real Estate Division was kind enough to prepare Bulletin 12, which if you go to the Real Estate Division website, there is Bulletin 12. And it discusses property management relative to NRS 645.019. And that is whether or not you are conducting property management. Now, there are some limited activities that a licensee can undertake that are not considered property management, but are the essentially creation of a lease agreement, sort of a lease situation. My advice for realtors that want to avoid being one of the 60% of complaints that the real estate division hears each month, or each quarter, I should say, avoid property management at all costs. Really, you have an opportunity to go out and show properties that are already leased or already available for lease through the MLS and receive a referral fee for your efforts. But outside of that, you really can pull yourself and your broker into the troubled waters of the Nevada Real Estate Commission, because you may not realize how slippery that slope is. Your client says, "Hey, Jim, you know, I bought this house from you, and could you just help me find a renter?" And you know, the agents will put in the MLS that it's a courtesy listing. Well, there is no such thing as a courtesy listing. Just to be clear, if you thought that a courtesy listing is a real thing, I promise you it is not. It is absolutely a real bona fide listing. And you, as the broker of record, you as the licensee on the property, are taking on all of the potential problems that will come from that representation of the property. And you may say, "Oh, well, I'm not managing it. The client's managing it." Whose name was on the listing? Yours.
Yes.
Whose name is probably on the lease agreement? Yours.
Yes.
You are going to get dragged into, in many, many cases, at least a discussion about what happened when this owner decides to do something that's maybe fair housing protected.
Right.
Maybe they're not handling deposits correctly. They gave, you know, the tenant maybe gave you the deposit, Jim. I gave you the deposits. I didn't know you were giving them to the homeowner. And so this, you know, what do we hear in real estate school? When you act like an attorney, right? That's the one thing they try to scare us about in real estate school. Don't practice law. Don't give tax advice. Because if you do, then the judge is going to treat you like they would an attorney, or the judge is going to treat you like they would a CPA. The same is true for the commissioners. If you behave in a manner that seems like a property manager, they are going to treat you as though you have that expertise and that licensing. And those fines are steep. I think they start at $5,000.
Wow.
So let me ask you a question, Jeff. If I have a next door neighbor that owns a property at the bottom of the hill, and he's renting that property out, and he comes over to my house and says, "Hey, listen, I'm going to Italy for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I need someone to pick up the rent check down there from that gentleman who's renting that house at the bottom of the hill." What happens if I do that?
Well, that is this is the slippery slope I was talking about. Your friend goes out of state, like you just said. They're going to be out of the country, and oh gosh, you know what? The rent is due. Could you do me a favor? I normally pick it up in person, but would you go pick that rent up? And you knock on the door and you say, "Hey, you know, John's out of state, like he said, and he said I could come pick up the rent." So you give, "Hey, by the way, while you're here, we have a leak in our kitchen and it's damaging the cabinets." "Oh gosh, you know, let me see if I can get a hold of him. You know, I got a handyman. Let me send my handyman over here to take care of this. I don't want my client's property to get mold." And so now, not if you've collected rent, you know, you're trying to do the right thing. I think 99% of the time, this is all the path to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah.
And I don't mean you're going to hell for doing these things and to help your client, but you're going to go through hell if and when eventually these things happen. There was a case that ended up in front of the commissioners where a realtor did exactly what you just said, John. They went out of the country. Their agent friend lived in the area, and they said, "Could you do me a favor? Could you go collect the rent?" The agent collected the rent. They had the check, and then they went out of town. Well, they went out of town, and the homeowner wanted their rent. So they argued and complained that they wanted that agent to get them the damn check. And they couldn't. They were out of town. They had done the nice thing of getting it, right? The nice thing. But then they left town. So what happened was They complained, a formal complaint with the Nevada Real Estate Division, statement of fact of their upset that this agent was not remitting monies to them timely. And guess what they got? They got a fine.
Good
So they had done
heavens.
their friend, not just an agent, a friend, a favor, and they ended up getting fined by Nevada Real Estate Division for practice of property management and failure to remit monies timely.
So it sounds like you're saying stay away from it 100,000%. Just stay away from it. Period.
Well, not only that, but agents in a lot of cases will create a lease agreement, right? That's one of the things that
All the
is
time.
part of
All
these
the time.
courtesy
Yeah.
listings.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
what they don't understand is in many cases, they're creating a listing improperly, a lease agreement improperly, because statute requires, and you'll see this in our forms, but statute requires that realtors, so if I'm a property manager, which I happen to be, and I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night, when I create a lease agreement, I am entitled to do so under statute. And but the problem is, though, that if you're not a property manager and you create a lease agreement, you have to create a lease agreement that's compliant with AB Assembly Bill 161. And Assembly Bill 161 requires that lease agreement be notarized by both parties, because this was all brought about during the squatter crisis that we had many years ago. Cops would show up, tenant would provide a lease agreement, owner's name is in the tax record, so it looks legitimate, and the cop's job is not to decide what's legitimate or not. And so they show up and say, hey, this person has a valid lease agreement. You got to take them to court. So you take them to court and then you get them out. But you've gone through maybe 3 or 4 months at that point of going back and forth trying to get them out of the property. And they've damaged and everything else. So it created this requirement to have a notary so that the cops could show up and say, well, this isn't even a valid lease agreement. There's no property manager involved. It gave the cops some more teeth to get tenants out of properties when they knew that they were squatting. So if you create the wrong lease agreement and the cops show up and it's not notarized, well, guess what? Who are they going to call? The agent that did the courtesy listing.
Yeah.
So these are more issues where agents get in trouble.
It really is, as you said. We all like to say, I'm not an attorney. People go consult an attorney. Go consult your CPA when it comes to tax advice. I mean, it's almost to the point now where it's so highly specialized, what you're saying, to me anyway, is that you better use a property manager in all cases, correct?
There really isn't a reason not to. I mean, let's just look at the cost. First off, Nevada statute says that you have to have a responsible party within 60 miles of the property. And so if you don't have a responsible party here and something really goes wrong, then you are in a situation as a property owner where you may run into a problem with the state, or the tenant may have some, better claim against you as the homeowner. Because you have allowed their property to be so this is NRS 118A.260. The landlord or any person authorized to enter a rental dwelling on his or her behalf shall disclose to the tenant in writing before the commencement of the tenancy, the name and address of, et cetera, et cetera. This is the property manager. So they have to provide the property manager's information. But NRS 118A.260 1B says a telephone number at which a responsible person who resides in the county or within 60 miles of the premises are located in the case of an emergency.
So there's literally thousands of realtors breaking the law every day.
Thousands of homeowners that are against statute. If you don't have a responsible party by statute, responsible as we interpret it is the person who has the right by law to be responsible for the property. A handyman can't be responsible for your property unless that handyman is the property manager.
Well, that's the first thing that came to my mind. At least I have a handyman. He's within 60. But
I call him up every time the toilet leaks, but he's not by statute somebody who has authority to act on behalf of the homeowner in the way that I believe, and a lot of my property manager colleagues believe statute was intended to create. So if I'm not saying this is one of those things that happens a lot, but let's just say you have a property manager that's going to charge you, a percentage. I won't go into percentages in our discussion here today, but let's just say they're charging a percentage of the monthly rent. I would assume that if you, as a homeowner, especially an out-of-state homeowner, took the time and energy that it takes to do a modest repair to property, let's say it's we see this a lot, water heaters that pop, and then flood the garage and flood the laundry room that they're attached to because you didn't have that wonderful pan sitting around it with the little PVC pipe that extends to the concrete floor of the garage. Let's just say that happens and it's not something the tenants notice right away. Oh, you know, the hot water was intermittent, but we didn't really think anything of it until the laundry room was flooded. Well, now you may have the M word, mold, you losing use of the laundry room and the garage for a period of time. Your tenants may very well run into an issue with habitability. And I promise you, if you take the hours that it takes you as a homeowner out of state to deal with that, plus maybe even flying to Las Vegas, driving to Las Vegas, time from work, time from whatever the case may be, and just the hassle, I promise you that what you pay a property manager, a good one, is going to far exceed what you're going to pay a property manager for the year. So really, I promise you, you have better things to do than try to self-manage property out of state.
Well, this is what's so surprising to me is, you know, I go down to Key Realty School and I have all these students that are going through the school, and some of the questions a lot of times are, well, do you do property management? That's what I'm interested in. Or I'll get people coming in here for an interview and they'll say, well, you don't have property management. I don't want to come here if you don't have property management.
Right.
Why is there such a want and need for these people to get into property management?
Well, I think there's a misinterpretation of how easy it is to do it. You know, I have 4 staff members. I manage about 280 homes. You know, the overhead for management in staffing, for software, the trust accounting, the bookkeeper, you know, the things that you have to account for in this industry. And I'll tell you what, people get crazy with money. I don't care if it's $10 or $10,000. They want to know where every penny is. And I don't blame them for that. But the reality is the amount of time, effort, and energy that you as a real estate licensee are going to put into property management to start up and do it piecemeal, one property at a time, it's not profitable until you've reached more than 100 homes. It's not profitable. Our management software alone runs $2,000 a month.
And the argument we hear all the time is, all I want to do is manage 4 or 5 properties, make a little side money, right, John?
You're not going to make any 4 or 5 properties. You are much better off to refer those to a property manager with a big portfolio that will pay you a referral fee for bringing those properties in. They will probably pay you more for the referral than you'll make in 2 years of managing the homes.
What happens to the group that comes to you, or the manager that comes to you and says, hey, listen, I want to get into property management. I got a chance to take over these 100 homes. Would that be worth their while?
I will buy portfolios from agents that are interested in leaving the industry, but I don't bring on other property managers at my office because of what we just talked about. You know, there are very, very big fines associated with property management. I built my business, you know, over years, and I am not willing to allow someone else to put my license at risk. You know, my realtors go out and they sell homes, and we have errors and omissions insurance, and that's great. And, you know, they're very highly trained, and I really look over every file to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. But property management leaves so many different elements of potential pitfalls. Everything that happens can be a pitfall. I mean, case in point, I have a property owner that brought a tenant prospect to me for a property that I have managed for him. It's vacant. It's been vacant for some time because I don't know if you realize the market's shifted, and it's continuing to shift.
You might have heard.
He brought me this tenant for a 4-bedroom house, and there are 10 occupants, and it's a housing voucher house. So the tenant has a housing voucher, and I just told him, I said, unfortunately, the number of tenants, the number of occupants exceeds the HUD guidelines and the Keating memo guidelines from 1998 as to how many tenants I can have in the property. And the guideline is 2 per bedroom plus 1 per unit. So to make sense of that is, if you have a 2-bedroom unit, you have 2 per bedroom, which is 4, plus 1 for the whole unit, which is you have 5 people. So in this case, it's 4 times 2 plus 1 is 9. And I have 10. I can't approve 10. So, you know, you're running into issues that we're running into now of consolidating of households. We're seeing more and more families coming together to try to afford the cost of rent. So they're cramming more people into housing. You know, we've seen modifications to, you know, when I go in, we go in at least once a year to check on our properties. I've seen tenants that have moved beds into the dining room and blocked my back sliding door. You can't do that.
Whoa.
You know, I've taken over management of properties where the garage is chock full. You cannot move from the back door of the garage to the garage door where the car comes in, and that's a fire hazard. So the ingress and egress starts to be blocked. The number of windows and doors that people can escape through start to be compromised. This is stuff that agents don't think about. And if you're doing these courtesy listings or you're trying to jump into property management, you better have someone who knows their stuff, a subject matter expert, and you better make sure that you're doing it right every time.
So you know what you're doing. You're experienced. I mean, definitely, I would say you're on the upper quarter of people I know that do property management. And you really know your stuff. Given the opportunity to start over, would you do it again?
Great question, John.
Yeah, I would, but I would do it a little differently. I've had a lot of trials and tribulations, a lot of stress and heartache, and frankly, a lot of money I've spent fixing problems. You know, I've made mistakes in the past. You know, your client. One of my mistakes, I had a client that was in the hospital. She was quite ill, elderly, lives out of state. My assistant had gotten a work order that our refrigerator had gone down, and you know, we have this big flag in our system that says, hey, this property has a home warranty in place. And I assumed that she had done the proper checks and the refrigerator had been evaluated by the warranty company and that they were denying coverage. Well, come to find out, she got out of the hospital. We bought a new fridge. We put the fridge in. It was $900 refrigerator. The homeowner came out of the hospital and was looking through her statements, called the warranty company as, you know, as she would. And they said, well, we never got a claim for this. We never went out there. And she called me up and she was very polite about it because we've had a very good relationship for the last 6 years, and said, hey, Jeff, why did we buy this fridge? Why didn't the warranty company do it? And I said, well, that's a good question. I looked into it and I called her up and I said, hey, this is on us. I'm going to rebate you back. I'm going to pay you back the cost of the refrigerator, the installation, the shipping and everything else, minus the $75 trade service call that you would have paid to your warranty company. And I will write you a check for that. And I did. You know, that has put me upside down, or did put me upside down on her property for the entire year. I won't make money on her property, meaning I have all the management fees I will collect for the year on that home have gone out the window on this refrigerator replacement. But it was our fault, even though it wasn't my fault directly, it was my staff's fault. And so we had to fix it.
So how did that happen? Was that just something that slipped through the cracks or something that okay.
Mistakes, human error. You know, you get 15 phone calls, 15 maintenance calls in, you know, the first part of the morning. I mean, I've had 4 air conditioners go down this morning.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's today, Monday. 4 ACs went down. I had a tenant that texted and said that she had a leak from the ceiling upstairs from her upstairs condo. Looked at the picture, told her it looks like it's a faulty shower head, which it is. So it's not a leak, thankfully, but it's this kind of troubleshooting that we do all day long, and it saves our owners money. But it also requires some level of knowledge. If I sent a handyman out there to rip that ceiling open because we knew that we were going off of what the tenant represented, I'd be charging the owner for no reason. And I'd probably have an owner that wanted me to eat the cost of the drywall repairs. So it's a lot more than just knowing how to call a warranty company. A lot of times it's knowing how to troubleshoot things that just don't smell right.
Well, that's the thing. These folks that contact me or talk to me about why don't you have property management, their assumption, or in my opinion, their assumption of property management is not what you're describing. They think it's an easy thing to do. It's like selling a house. No problems. I can do that.
Yeah.
And they have no idea. It's hard to discourage them when you talk to them because they think they know more than you about it.
Well, I think everybody, I mean, look, I know property managers in town that have big custom homes in big expensive neighborhoods because they manage 1,000+ properties, but they also have 25 staff. You know, they also have massive overhead. And, you know, a lot of property managers lost it when 2007 hit. When that market hit and all those properties that they managed went into foreclosure and short selling, they lost 40 and 50 and 70% of their portfolios. I mean, they went from making X number of dollars a month to X minus 70%. I don't know many people in any economy or in any budget that can take 70% less 6 months, you know, from 1 month to the next. I just doesn't happen that way.
Before you jumped on the call, we did some quick math. We won't do it now, but we figured 100 units at $1,700 average rent per month. We times that by 12. We got that number, right? We times that by 12. Just correct me if I'm wrong. Figure we times it by 12. Then we times that by 7%. Is that a fair number?
Yeah, I think it's a fairly reasonable number for the market.
And we came up with what, Alexis? $142,000. Does that sound right?
So
You don't have the numbers there.
yeah,
in front of you, but-
$142,800.
Yeah.
That's before taxes, which will take 33% off that. 142,800 times 0.67, right?
Right.
So that's 142,800 times 0.67. That's $9,000 off the top. I mean, when all is said and done, you're paying somebody, let's say, $40,000 a year to work as your assistant, because you can't do 100 properties on your own.
Thank you. Exactly.
So you take that out, you're probably walking away with 60 grand. So 60 grand to manage property, 100 units. Now, are there agents that focus on certain demographic properties, like 4-bedroom homes and certain zip codes that have, noticeably higher rents? Yes. So do they charge more than 7%? Absolutely. Do they charge a lot of junk fees? Absolutely. So there are ways of making these situations more profitable, but you also have to look at what we call the race to zero. There's, in any industry, there is a natural race for the cost of what that vendor receives in payment towards zero. Meaning, if you look at all of the discounts that go on, the special rates and all these things that we see in every industry, there's always someone who's trying to do it for less money. And so that perpetuates this race to zero. That is in our industry as well. And so you have to be able to create and structure a fee structure or a business model that allows you to remain profitable when everything is racing towards the bottom.
So we're talking about 100 units, and actually managing 100 units is an entirely different animal, correct? I mean, managing 100 units every day, the phone calls, the grief of this, for a $60,000 a year income. I mean, is that even? Yeah, I know you a long time. You're a brilliant guy. You have a high. Why did you do this? I mean, why? I'm not saying you. There must be some logic to why. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, I sit in with a lot of mastermind groups where we talk about best practices. Not here in Las Vegas. I don't think it's wise to do mastermind groups amongst yourselves in the city where you compete, because inevitably there's going to be discussions about fees and structuring fees, and that's dangerous and gets you into all sorts of potential anti-competitive practices. So if you're going to mastermind, I recommend doing it with people outside your marketplace. But we sit down and try to work out best practices for the ways that we can operate in a way that we provide the best service possible and make the most money possible, while maintaining our ethics and standards, and certainly always providing value for what we do. And there's many ways of doing that. It's not easy, but there are many ways of doing it. It just takes, I can't begin to describe the amount of time it takes to do any one of these things, and everything that you do could become could be scrutinized by a judge or the commissioners at the Nevada Real Estate Division.
How long did it even take you to get to 100? I mean, it took you a while, or?
Yeah, it takes a long time. I mean, I opened the brokerage going on 6 years ago, and we opened property management right off the bat. And 6 years later, I'm only at 280 properties.
Yeah.
So, the 280 properties is, in my opinion, right about where you start to feel like you're making some progress. 250, I think, is where I started to feel like I was making progress. And you really don't get that swing and that momentum until I think you're north of 300.
So, given your career, you're in residential, you're in commercial?
We have a commercial division. Yep.
All right. And you've got property management, doing all those things. Which one is your favorite? Oh,
I love sales. I mean, I love sales because sales to me is the most exciting. I mean, your clients are thrilled in the sale and purchase of the property, and you develop these really intense 30-day relationships.
Yeah.
Now I've got property owners I've worked with for many years, 6 years, and so I had one pass away recently, and it put me in tears. I mean, I was devastated. She was lovely, and I was she was I probably manage 12 or 13 homes for her, and I manage them for her estate now. But you do develop these much longer term relationships that are much more consistent. And that brings me to the point that when you refer your clients to me, Maria Anticol with your office, the Marks, several people from Realty One who I've had relationships for many years, Jeff Wilson, Dave Gill, they've all referred clients to me. And my commitment to them is not to just ever, solicit or poach their client. I am necessarily going to have 99% of the time, I'm going to have more contact, more relationships, and more consistency with their clients than they will. And David Morris referred a client to me several years ago. David and I have been friends for a long time, referred a client to me, took great care of the property. The client called me up and said she was ready to sell the house. I said, great, let's get Dave on the phone. And without even a hesitation, let's get Dave on the phone. And Dave sold the house right before the market tanked. It was great price, great timing on his part. Sold the house and things were great. It's all about giving agents that comfort that they are going to be sure that when they turn someone over to you, that they are going to get that person back when that person's ready to sell.
All right. So we established then that sales is something you love to do.
Yes.
Now, given the fact that you've got this fairly large property management group, takes a lot of your time, takes a lot of your effort, takes a lot of your energy. Does it affect your ability to keep selling and doing the things that you like to do?
Yes. Property management is consistent. There's no doubt about it. It does provide a consistent income, but it also provides a consistent stream of hassles and stress and headaches. And, I have been through, you can tell I'm a total jerk by talking to me this morning. You both know me long enough to know that I'm a complete a-hole. Nobody likes me. I'm really hard to get along with, and I'm a terrible boss.
Exactly.
But the reason I say that is because I have been through 6 property management assistants in 6 years. Wow. And it is not because I'm a terrible tyrant that runs around the office screaming at people and belittling them. I buy lunch. I'm a nice guy. I'm good to deal with. We have a jar of M&Ms out there. There's much more to it. But my point is, it is such a stressful industry. It is such tenants don't call up and say, hey guys, just wanted to let you know things are great. Just wanted to see how your Monday was. They don't call us with that. They call us to tell us that they're livid, that their AC has been down for 35 minutes. Mm-hmm. How dare you? I have a baby in this house. It's an emergency. Well, first of all, ma'am, your son is 14. And an emergency that does not make. So we run into these things all the time. They're never calling us to tell us what a great job we're doing. They're always calling us to tell us what a terrible experience this is, and how dare we make them wait for, a whole 24 hours to restore air conditioning.
But does it kick into your selling time?
1000%. No, without a doubt. When you're stretched between sales and management and everything else, you are constantly trying to place enough time and energy into each bucket to maintain that momentum and maintain those sales. And inevitably something is going to, you either have to hire more people, which is more outlay in your income, or you have to spend more time. And, it has eaten up, time with my family, and I'm trying to make some changes there. But most definitely it is not an easy thing. And any property manager that does this and wants to be honest with you will tell you that.
All right. So here's the next question. What if you had a team that worked for your brokerage, and the team, had 50 people on the team and very successful at what they were doing in residential sales and maybe even some commercial sales. And that's what they've been doing that for years. And all of a sudden they want to get into property management. Would you say that's a smart thing or not a smart thing?
My gut tells me that's kind of a silly thing to do. You are going to, the amount of time, effort, and energy that it's going to take someone to create the tools that they need to be successful and productive and fairly automated in this industry is going to cost them an absolute ton of money. You got to figure, on a $2,000 home, $2,000 a month rent, I make $140. So that's a month, and that's, whatever that is times 12. I don't know what that is. I'm not good with math. I can tell you what 3% of something is. $1,680 a month, a year. Sorry, 1680 a year. So, you know, you have to have a lot of those, to equal one closing, you know, one sales commission.
Well, you know, I'm thinking about the time it's going to take away from them continuing to manage and build their team.
No, and I think that if you've got a successful team, you need to do what I tell my homeowners: stay in what you're good at. You know, I have homeowners that are, you know, whatever their day job is, I promise you they're not as good as I am in what I do. So they need to commit and stick to what they're good at, double down. I mean, I know this market's got a lot of people scared. I went through 2007. I went through 2011. I've been through the pandemic and other things. This market is going to be cyclical, like every market before it. And, you know, we are going to see a decrease in sales, which we already have, and we're going to see a decrease in sales prices, which we already have. But it's not going to be something, in my opinion, that would cause me to want to change my what's working that much. I think you can make a lot more money referring somebody to a really good property manager than trying to create a situation where you know, you're bringing on this. Property management is not like sales. It is closer to plumbing than it is to sales. I mean, realistically, it shares very, 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 very little with real estate sales. And so to get into that industry when you have a background and a really good talent in sales is really just like quitting real estate. You have to know. And I bought a book. I bought several books from agents over the years. You know, 100 here, 40 there. If you can't buy a portfolio, and portfolios are not cheap, if you can't buy a portfolio, you are going to have a hell of a time making something like this profitable. In fact, the software program that I use, which is the industry standard, the best that there is, you can't even talk to them until you have 50 properties under management. They won't even entertain having you as a client until you have at least 50.
Wow. Wow. So you ever just stop to think, why do I need all this grief? I could focus on my sales career and just do better, do as well, if not better.
Yeah. I mean, every day I do. But you know, it's something I've committed to, and it's something that, you know, I guess I've always been one that likes a challenge. And I will say that I think realistically, had I known that this was the challenge that it is, I probably would have been a little bit more cautious in going into it as hard as I did. But I would say that looking at how many property managers there are in town and how few of them have portfolios that are actually profitable, you know, I reach out to those people on regular occasion to say, hey, are you tired yet? You know, because property managers that are really looking to expand are doing so aggressively. And, you know, we are looking to buy portfolios, and agents that have 4 and 5 and 10 and 25 properties, 100 plus properties, always looking to take those portfolios on. And, you know, I can't tell you how often I will take a portfolio on thinking that the person that I'm meeting with really knows their stuff, only to find out that they've broken laws, they've violated fair housing. I mean, and they just think that everything's great. I had one.
You're doing that because you've now got a system down. You figured out property management and the right way to do it. If you didn't have that knowledge, would you be doing the same thing?
Absolutely not. No, you know, there's one person who's really helped me a lot, who's in our marketplace, and I won't throw her name out there because I don't like to do that to people. But you know, without that person and her breadth of knowledge and ability to really help me stay constantly at the forefront of ethics and compliance, you know, I probably would have just thrown in the towel. I would have said, you know what, this isn't worth it. I'm not going to get sued. I'm not going to go down with the ship. You know, the reality is property management. If you guys know of the open house, right? It's like our favorite thing to go into. You know, you have agents that are experienced. You know, the June 2022 issue shows a $20,000 fine, $8,964 $65 in division costs and fees. This broker had to take 6 hours of agency, 6 hours of ethics, and surrender their property management license.
Wow.
There was another broker who's been very widely publicized here, $90,000 fine for creating a physical intimacy contract, we'll call it, with a tenant. That's become a federal case because that tenant was on a housing voucher. There's all sorts of stuff that happens.
But without that, well, what would they do at the division meetings?
I know. Well, that 60%, 60, I think it's 66%, 30, a full 2/3 of what the real estate division handles each meeting is property management related. This one was in September of 21. Pamela Jo Green had her license revoked and her property management permit revoked. $375,000 fine.
How do you pay that? I mean, really?
You don't. I mean, these people are thrown into bankruptcy, and people will say, oh, well, the real estate division can't do anything to you once your license is revoked. Absolutely not true. The real estate division has authority over licensees and non-licensees, and they have the ability to levy your bank accounts just like they do, because you got to keep in mind, real estate division is put on by the Nevada Attorney General's office.
Right.
This is not like some little, HOA board. These folks are backed up by the Nevada Attorney General's office, and they will get their pound of flesh. So, I mean, that's why we have incredible checks and balances here.
Let's talk about the old Airbnb everybody wants to jump on now. So,
yeah.
Can we talk about that a bit? I mean, you definitely need a property management license to do that, or do you not? Or
yeah, you do. And I'll be completely frank, I don't keep up with Airbnb because I don't participate in them. Right. I think they are one swipe of a pen away from being a terrible investment. And yes, they could be a great investment for people now, but I think the reality is there are people in both the professional campaign and in the civil campaign that are trying to get rid of these things. I think it just takes one person who's got a friend in a high place, as we've seen with politics, to sway this the other way. And yes, they are legal in jurisdictions, but what you will run into in fines, fees, penalties, etc. I don't know. I just don't feel if it's not your expertise, and I don't mean, oh yeah, we manage one or two. If it's not your expertise, you should not be helping your clients with them. And also from a sales standpoint, you better make sure that your clients have done all this due diligence on their own. You better not be coming to them as the expert end all be all on this, because the rules are changing every day. What's going to happen is your client's going to come to you and say, you told me that this was going to make this much money. You told me that this was not going to be changed by this. It's part of the states. The states authorized it now. Now, when something changes like this, especially something that's as volatile and hot button as Airbnb, be careful.
Like you said, one swipe of the pen, it could be all over. I mean,
swipe of the pen. And it's not as though this is, orphanages. People are in favor. Oh yes, we need more orphanages. These are people having parties and peeling out their vehicles and, revving engines and motorcycle. I mean, when I lived in Henderson years ago in a different home, we had somebody running an illegal Airbnb, and I was on the HOA board, and they used to have a motorcycle club that would come in every year, the same time, twice a year. And they would bring their Harleys through, and there were 15 or 20 of them in a house in our neighborhood, little 11 home community. And I sat on the HOA board, and we sent this guy a cease and desist letter. And, he flew from Seattle to my house and rang my doorbell and confronted me at my home because we were telling him to cease and desist because he was violating our HOA rules. This was before they were legal in Henderson. I mean, he was damaging the peaceful enjoyment of our neighborhood. And he showed up at my house, flew from Seattle, and confronted me and threatened me. So, these are not something that people are on board with across the board. This is something that could very well change in the next legislative session.
Did you just use the term peeling out a minute ago, by the way?
Sure did.
I haven't heard that since high school.
Well, hey.
Love that, Jeff.
What are you going to call it? Awesome. Spinning their wheels?
That was awesome. So let's talk about Jeff LaValle. So you got into property management, right? And you're doing fine. What services do you provide for tenants? landlords?
Well, we provide everything. I mean, we're full service. So, we place the tenants. One thing that I don't allow my owners to do is involve themselves in the tenant placement. The only time I call my owners for any approval is when the tenant has a pet or some other situation that I think I need the homeowner's input on. Inevitably, homeowners want to ask questions that are fair housing regulated. I've never had an owner my owners always want to know how many people are in the home, how many kids, what are their credit score. I don't think my owners need to know any of that.
Right.
But I make that clear up front. I don't involve them in that. So we find the tenant, we place the tenant, we background the tenant, we look in court cases, we Google their Facebook account, we Google their Instagram account. We check to see if their office, their company is legitimate, that they work for. We're very strict. I don't profess to be the fastest property manager in town. Inevitably, it will take a little longer to rent through me because I am careful, but that translates, knock on wood, to lower eviction issues, to lower costs for the homeowners generally. I go through the home before we list the home for rent and walk through and check sinks and drains. And I do my own little inspection. It's not a home inspection, but I go through and just do normal testing of the appliances and stuff to make sure that they function correctly, because I'd rather get the smoke detectors and everything replaced and all that stuff taken care of in one visit, as opposed to having my owner have a trip charge that eats away at their annual profit. Everything's electronic. We pay our owners electronically. They get a statement at the end of the month. They get a statement at the end of the year for their CPA. It's very, very, very user friendly. And we also use all professional marketing, all professional photos, just as though we were selling the house. We do the same approach there. I've never been sued, knock on wood, by a homeowner or a tenant. I've had tenants that have threatened me. I had one last week that would threaten me to take me to court. But I have about 350 photos per home when I take over for a vacant property. I take pictures of baseboards. I take pictures of door frames, toilet paper holders, door stoppers. I take pictures of serial numbers for the dishwasher and the microwave. So, I mean, I have a very, very, very good file. And when that tenant wants to threaten to take me to court for charging them a cleaning fee, I guarantee you I have proof that I had to have that home recleaned.
Who establishes the commissions when you're renting out?
I go based off what the market's requiring. If I know that a property is going to sell quickly or rent quickly for my homeowner, I tend to be a little lighter on the referral fee. I try to keep everything at a reasonable amount for agents out there that are out there showing property and doing what they can to help our properties get leased out. But the owner sets the minimum, and we abide by that.
Okay.
So I get questions all the time. I get emails all the time. Jim, this property manager's not paying me yet. I rented this house out 3 weeks ago. I still have not got paid. What is the rule on that? Is there
the
a
rule on that is
rule?
30 days.
Okay.
I'm trying to get some stuff changed, and I'm going to work on this as well. I don't believe that there should be quite the onus on a referral fee as there is in a commission dispute through arbitration at the board. I believe that if a broker has, for example, and I see this all the time, they have the referring agent and the MLS as the referring agent, right? Closing out the property, showing it's been leased, and the agent hasn't been paid some 45 days later.
Right.
In my opinion, there really shouldn't be a heck of a lot that the agent has to do to recuperate those funds. I'd like to create a more streamlined process. So we're going to try to work on something that gives due process to both agents or both brokers. But 30 days is the maximum. I mean,
was there ever a case where they had a situation where they got paid once the tenant actually moved into the property?
So it's 30 days from lease. So, if it's just because the tenant got approved on, May 10th, if they don't, if the agent was holding that property for 20 days, that lease doesn't actually start until June 1st. So really that agent shouldn't expect to be paid until June 30th. We try to pay our agents as quickly as possible. I mean, if you've rented a property, we have a 10-day hold period maximum. So I won't hold a property for more than 10 days. Once the tenant's been approved, if they don't want to start paying rent, I'll go to the next tenant. So 10 days maximum. So, I mean, really, as long as they've sent us the W-9 and they've sent us their referral agreement, which we, require they sign. I mean, 30 days is no problem.
So what does an agent do that's not getting paid? and they need a lot of time.
Say again?
Let's say it's 45 days. What's that?
Say that again.
What does an agent do to if they're not getting paid?
Oh, so the broker has to file an arbitration at the board.
Yeah,
And-
we've actually done that before.
Yeah,
This
it's
was like said,
$100. It's
Yeah,
$100 for both parties to go in and arbitrate. I it's not the same standard as far as I understand, and don't quote me on this, as obviously it would be procuring cause with a sale for $50,000. But it is important that the parties be able to address them. I think from what I've heard, when the arbitration gets filed, in most cases, the listing broker, the property manager tends to pay those out because it's just not worth the hassle, if anything. I've had situations where I've had two agents call me up and say that they were due a referral fee because the tenants were helping them in both, both agents were helping that tenant. We rely on the tenant at that point to tell us who it was that was really the person that helped them get the property. And I'll just explain to the other broker, look, I can't pay both of you. Clearly there's not two commissions to be had here. And I've never had a problem. If we discuss it and are open about it, that usually goes away.
what's the best way to prove that? What's the best way to prove that I'm the procuring cause? I mean,
Show the property. I mean, I know we ran into a lot of situations with COVID where agents weren't showing property, and that's fine. But one of the questions we asked the tenant in the application is, have you seen the home? And if so, who showed it to you? So normally on the application, I have it right then and there that agent showed it. We use electronic lock boxes. So I have an audit of who was in my property. That helps us understand how quickly the properties are being shown. It gives us some better idea of activity. So in case we have to adjust the rent at some point, which is more of an issue now than it was 8 months ago. But, we get to see how many showings we're getting in any given day, which you don't get in mechanical lock boxes, which are so prevalent. But that helps me as well. I can say, look, this tenant said that this person was the agent. My lockbox shows that your agent didn't show the property. I don't know how else you plan to show that you were the person that deserved to be paid on this. Rentals do take some effort as well. And obviously they're not compensated as well, but showing rentals, one, it gives new agents an opportunity to get comfortable opening and closing lock boxes, showing property. Really, there should be no difference in showing a rental than there is in showing a home for sale. Point out the good things, point out the bad things, help your client understand. I mean, I have a client of mine. He's a chief master sergeant with the Air Force, called me up and said he's got another chief master sergeant moving from Alaska, asked if I would be willing to help him show a rental. I don't show rentals. I'm too busy here, but this is a dear friend of mine. I took it on, spent 2 days in the Northwest, showing rentals. And we got him into something. So they said, hey, we got a sectional couch. We want to have an older dog that needs a backyard that's got this and that. We don't want to really have anybody behind us because we're from Alaska, and having this kind of, houses right on top of each other isn't great for us. We need a driveway. So what did I do? I did what I do when I'm selling somebody a home. I went through and I picked it all apart. I found them homes that worked. We went and showed those homes. It was 2 trips, probably an hour and 25 minutes total. And, if he goes to buy or he has any subordinate airmen that want to buy a home, I'm sure I'm the guy they're going to call.
There you go.
So I know. What about the whole support animal thing? If I say no pets,
Wow,
yeah,
you're going deep today, Jim. Emotional support animals, we don't touch that issue. I have a third-party company that I contract out that is responsible for determining the validity of a support animal. I am not qualified to make that decision, and I am not willing to go to court because I made a wrong call. If it were up to me to decide these things on my own, I would approve every animal that came to me, because I'm not going to go down to protect my owner from having some, urine stains. And because of that, and I know that sounds a little harsh, I'm not going to protect my owner, but the reality is the laws are so unclear, and I'm not a legal expert. So we have a company that we contract with that every one of our tenants is required to fill out an application with them. And they fill out a no pet application, a yes pet application, or an ESA support animal application. And Nevada's law is actually that Nevada does allow for an emotional support animal to qualify in the same standard that a assistance animal. And the difference between an emotional support animal and assistance animal, an ESA is there because of usually some sort of anxiety or traumatic stress disorder or something like that, whereas an assistance animal is actually there for a bona fide assistance reason. You know, we know blind seeing eye dogs. We know people that are quadriplegics or have mobility issues that cannot bend down and pick things up that have been dropped. That's all covered under the assistance animal. So we don't make those calls. We let that be done by a company with much more expertise than we have.
But if, as an owner, if I say no pets, am I required to take that on if they have a valid reason for having an emotional support?
Yeah, and you're not allowed to charge a deposit. You're not allowed to charge pet rent. So, you know, at that point, the pet in an emotional support animal situation or an assistance animal situation is no different than a person having a walker or a cane or a wheelchair or any other mobility issue. That is now a fixture, essentially, not an animal. Now, they are still responsible for damage. So if that animal ruins your carpeting, or that animal chews up the baseboards, or that animal, you know, digs up the backyard and the sprinkler system, still responsible to pay for that. You just can't have a deposit against those items, that animal specifically.
Wow, we learned a lot today, didn't we? Wow, and the hour's flown by. My goodness. Lastly, Jeff, I know by your history you will never ever poach any of our agent clients. I know you won't do that. You never have, and that's why we like to refer all of our property management, you know, to you, and we do that willingly and gladly. So, talk about referral. How's that work? If I have an owner that wants to use you as a property management, as an agent, you'll pay a referral, right?
Yeah. So I pay $500 per property. If it's an owner that I get, so let's say you refer an owner to me and they have 5 properties and you're referring all 5 over, and the owner gives me all 5 properties, I pay that $2,500 out once we collect the first month of rent, because we have to make sure that we have an actual bona fide contract. If that owner continues to send me properties that they acquire, there isn't an additional fee for that because I've established that relationship. But if you give me a new client and that person brings on more, and you know, each time you refer me a new owner, it's a new referral fee, and that's paid out once we lease the property. Because we've had situations where owners have put the property up for rent and then their nephew wants to move in. Well, we're not going to manage it at that point. So we're not getting paid for it, which means we can't pay out a referral fee.
So you pay out a referral at $140, and you make $140 a month. You pay out a referral of $500 one time. You're already in the hole, what, 4 or 5 months?
Yeah,
Right.
and it's, you know, we're running a numbers game where we expect that property will probably be rented for 3 or 4 years. You know, that's the goal. You know, in some cases you break even on them, in some cases you don't. It's all a numbers game. The hope is that you are able to bring on enough properties and build that trust with the agent that they continue to bring you referrals and investors that are, you know, bringing in a larger number of properties.
Wow.
Well, Jeff, we've had a wealth of questions brought to us over the course of the last 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
And you answered a lot of them for us. I really
Big time.
appreciate you coming on.
Anytime. Yeah. And I get calls from agents periodically asking me about, you know, how does my client get out of this lease? How does my client do this? How does my client do that? I'm always willing to take phone calls. I just don't want to create an expectation that I'll be able to fix the problem. You know, most of my advice is going to end up with contact an attorney. Your client doesn't have many options, or, you know, make sure you talk to your broker about this because it sounds like you might be in the wrong here. So I try to always give them advice that is helpful, but keep in mind, I'm not an attorney. I'm a real estate broker, property manager. So I can't give advice that goes outside that license, but I'm always happy to try to help troubleshoot things and get you to the right person who can help.
My goodness, this was helpful. We might want to do another hour sometime in the near
Yeah,
future.
anytime.
Any
Well,
last-
thank you very much for your time. Really do.
Absolutely.
Thank
I'll
you,
send you the
sir.
bill. No worries.
Where's your office at now, Jeff? Where you at now?
We are over at 1090 Wigwam Parkway. I do manage property all over the valley. I don't manage in Pahrump. I don't manage in outlying areas. We do manage in Boulder City. We do manage throughout Las Vegas, North Las Vegas. Really, there's not a zip code I don't touch at this point. But we do really love the Henderson area when we can, when we can have what we want. So it just makes it easier for me to be out at the properties more frequently. But anything you guys need, I'm always here for you. And like I said, we'll never try to poach your client.
No.
One thing I will say on that is I had one situation once where I went to refer the client back to an agent. This was not a Realty One agent, but I said, "Oh, okay. Well, you want to sell? Let's get this guy on the phone." And she goes, "What? No, absolutely not." She was very upset with their experience, which I was not privy to, and actually ended up not selling with him. But she asked me to list the property. I did list the property. I paid him a handsome referral fee. I think I paid him 30% for that, just because I felt like, I don't want him to think that this was a purposeful thing on my part. She was quite adamant, and he acknowledged it. He said, "You got me dead to rights. I didn't think that was going to come back." So he actually got paid more than he thought he would. So yeah.
You're the best, man.
Hey,
Appreciate
thank
you
you
being
much.
here today.
All right.
you,
Good
Mr.
to see you.
Bell.
Hope we all see you
Good day.
soon.